Before I say anything else, I want you to answer one question, just in your head. Don't type it. Don't look it up. How long can you focus on a single task before your mind starts to drift? Hold that number. We're coming back to it. Now, you've probably heard the stat. The one about the goldfish. 8 seconds. The average human attention span is 8 seconds, which is allegedly less than a goldfish. It was in a Microsoft report. It went viral. It got cited in thousands of articles, and it became the shorthand explanation for why everyone feels scattered and distracted. Here's the problem. That statistic is completely made up. Neuroscientists Michael Posner and Marcus Rachel have been clear about this for years. The capacity of a healthy adult to pay attention has not fundamentally changed since it was first measured in the late 1800s. The 8-second figure traces back to a single unverified source called Statistic Brain. No credible institution ever confirmed it. The National Center for Biotechnology Information doesn't have it. The Associated Press doesn't have it. It was invented, repeated, and eventually accepted as fact because it felt true. And the goldfish part? Also wrong. Goldfish are capable of complex learning tasks on par with birds and small mammals. They remember. They adapt. They're not the punchline the internet made them. So your brain is fine. You haven't lost your mind. But there is something happening to your attention. Something specific, measurable, and in some ways more disturbing than the myth that replaced it. And today, you're going to find out exactly where you stand. Meet Daniel. He's 31, works in project management, gets enough sleep most nights, exercises occasionally, reads news, keeps up with things. By every visible measure, organized, functional, competent. He doesn't identify as someone with a problem. He's not a teenager glued to TikTok. He has a job, pays his bills, shows up on time. Last month, Daniel decided to start reading again. Bought a book he'd been meaning to read for 2 years, made a cup of coffee, sat down, got to page 3. And then his hand moved toward his phone, without him deciding to move it. He hadn't gotten a notification. There was no buzzing. There was no reason. His hand just went. On its own. Like a reflex he didn't choose. He put the phone back down, tried to reread the paragraph he'd just read, and realized he hadn't retained a single word of it. Read it again. Started page 4. Hand moved again. That's the thing nobody tells you about attention damage. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like deterioration. It feels like normal. It feels like today. It feels exactly like you. And here's the thing about Daniel. He also sometimes feels his phone vibrate in his pocket when it isn't vibrating. Neuroscientists have a name for this. Phantom vibration syndrome. It means the brain has been conditioned to anticipate the device so consistently that it starts generating the sensation on its own. The phone isn't buzzing. The expectation is. That's not a minor quirk. That's a nervous system that has been partially reorganized around a device. Now here's where most conversations about attention go wrong. They assume the problem is that attention is shrinking, that your capacity is smaller than it used to be, that you're processing less. That's not what's happening. What changed isn't the size of your attention. What changed is the mode. There are 2 fundamentally different ways the brain pays attention. The first is deep, linear, immersive focus, the kind you need to read a book, write something real, think through a hard problem. It's slow. It builds. The reward is delayed. This is the mode human cognition was built around for most of its history. The second mode is scanning, rapid, fragmented, jumping between stimuli, looking for novelty, discarding what doesn't spike immediately. This mode has its uses. In an environment with genuine threats, it's life-saving. But in an engineered digital environment, it's the default. And the longer it's the default, the more the first mode feels like effort. Your brain hasn't gotten worse at paying attention. It's been slowly trained to pay attention in a different way. And that different way is increasingly incompatible with anything that requires sustained depth. The specific function under attack isn't your intelligence. It isn't your memory. It's your inhibitory control. The ability to say no to the next stimulus. That lives in the prefrontal cortex. And it is the single cognitive function most directly targeted by how modern platforms are designed. To understand how bad the damage can get, you need to understand what heavy task switching actually costs. Every time you toggle, from a task to your phone, from a tab to a notification, from a video to a different video, there's a brief period of mental recalibration, a repositioning cost. Research quantifies this. At moderate multitasking, 10 to 20 context switches per hour, you lose about 20% of your productive capacity. At heavy digital toggling, 60 or more switches per hour, which is the range most heavy smartphone users are in, you lose 40%. Not spent, not redirected, gone. And the recovery time after a significant digital interruption? 23 minutes and 15 seconds. That's how long it takes the brain to fully return to depth after being pulled out by a notification, a check, a scroll. When you look at your phone for a second, you are not losing 1 second. You are losing the better part of half an hour. Now, the test. 10 questions. Score each one from 0 to 4. 0 means never. 4 means always. Score yourself as you actually are on an average Tuesday, not the version you'd prefer to be. 1. Do you stay online longer than you intended? 2. Do you have a house or workspace full of half-finished projects? 3. If someone interrupts you while you're working, is it difficult to get back on track? 4. Do you feel impatient or restless when someone talks slowly, when they're taking too long to get to the point? 5. Do you scroll your phone while watching a movie or a show, not because the show is bad, just because your hands need something to do? 6. Do you check your phone during face-to-face conversations? 7. Do you struggle to remember what you watched or read 10 minutes after you consumed it? You know you watched something. You just can't recall what. 8. Do you check your phone first thing in the morning before you've gotten out of bed? 9. Do you feel irritable or flat when you're away from your devices for an extended stretch? 10. Do you use scrolling or browsing to push away a thought or a feeling you don't want to sit with? Add those up. 0 to 10. First level, 11 to 25. Second level, 26 to 40. Third level, hold your number. 3 levels. Let me tell you what each one actually looks like from the inside. The first level, 0 to 10, is what researchers call healthy digital integration. At this level, attention is largely yours. You can sit with a task for an extended stretch without being yanked away. When you pick up your phone, it's usually because you decided to. You feel the urge to check sometimes, but most of the time you're the one choosing. This is roughly 20 to 25% of the adult population, and that number has been shrinking every year. The second level, 11 to 25, is moderate fragmentation. This is where most people reading this actually live. Here, your attention still works, but only under certain conditions. Only when the phone is in a different room. Only when you've checked notifications recently enough that the urge has temporarily quieted. You can focus, but you need infrastructure for it that you didn't used to need. The environment has started to dictate your focus patterns more than you do. Most people in this level don't know they're here. They think they're in the first. The third level, 26 to 40, is high fragmentation. At this level, the attention system is under sustained assault. Sitting with a book, a long article, even a slow conversation feels physically uncomfortable, not metaphorically, but as an actual physical sensation of restlessness. Researchers describe this as brain hyperactivity, a state of chronic high arousal where stillness itself registers as a problem to be solved. And here's what this level feels like from the inside, in the words of people who've described it. You can spend 4 hours consuming content and then not be able to recall a single specific thing you saw. You know you watched something. You know you scrolled. But ask yourself to reconstruct what you actually consumed, and there's almost nothing there. The brain struggles to stitch together disconnected clips into a coherent narrative. What you feel afterward is a kind of fog, overstimulated and empty at the same time. That's not laziness. That's a working memory system that got overloaded and started dropping information before it could be stored. This is what people mean when they say brain rot. Not a joke, a description. Okay, here's where the picture gets more complicated. If you scored in the first level, you might feel reassured. And in one frame, you should. But there's a second benchmark that almost nobody talks about. The relevant comparison is not everyone alive today. The relevant comparison is you in 2015. Or you at 16, before the feed was engineered the way it currently is, or what healthy looked like before these systems existed. Here's a number that tells the story. The average Facebook session, not TikTok, not Reels, not Shorts, Facebook, the slow one, the one your parents use, dropped from 2.7 minutes in 2013 to 54 seconds in 2025. Not because people became more efficient, Because the threshold for boredom collapsed. Because what counts as too slow moved. So, a score of 8 today might have been a score of 3 10 years ago. You're not being measured against a fixed standard. You're being measured against a floor that is being actively lowered. And here's the mechanism behind the lowering. Short-form video platforms cause a 47% spike in dopamine. That's not a metaphor. That's neurochemical. And because the videos are 10, 15, 30 seconds long, the brain receives those spikes in rapid succession, a staccato pattern of reward that has no equivalent in long-form media. No book delivers that. No conversation delivers that. No work task delivers that. What happens next is simple. The brain recalibrates. It starts expecting that level of stimulation. Anything slower, a reel, a book, a meeting, a person talking, registers as boring. Not because it is boring, because the reference point shifted. And TikTok does this faster than anything else. A Baylor University study compared TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts across 3 dimensions: how effortless it felt to use, how accurately it predicted your interests, and how well it delivered genuine surprise. TikTok won all 3. It requires the least effort. You don't even press play, you just exist, and the content arrives. Its algorithm learns your specific preferences faster than any other platform. And its serendipity, the unpredictable element that keeps you guessing what comes next, is precisely calibrated. It's not random, it's engineered randomness, which is the most addictive kind. Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, described this mechanism as a slot machine. When you pull down to refresh a feed, you are pulling a lever. Most of the time, the result is nothing special. But occasionally, unpredictably, something comes up that hits exactly right. That unpredictability is the design. Addictiveness is maximized when the reward schedule is variable. Not constant, not absent. Variable. A Cornell researcher tested something related to this. In a study on eating behavior, he gave participants soup bowls that secretly refilled themselves from a hidden tube at the bottom. People ate 73% more soup than people using normal bowls and reported being equally full. There was no stopping cue. Nothing told them they were done. The infinite scroll works the same way. There is no end. There is no "you're full." The bowl keeps filling. This is not metaphor. This is the engineering specification. Here's the part that changes the shape of the whole problem. The people building these systems know. Internal research from Meta, documents that weren't meant to be public, showed that 1 in 3 teenage girls reported feeling worse about their own bodies after using Instagram. Not worse sometimes. Consistently worse. And the internal finding wasn't, "we should investigate this." The internal finding was essentially, "this is happening," and the product remained unchanged. The system is most profitable when the extraction is invisible, when users believe they're choosing freely, when the costs feel personal rather than designed. You are not the customer. You are the inventory. 3 futures, same starting point, same Daniel. The first future, nothing changes. Daniel keeps checking his phone 43 times a day, keeps second screening, phone in hand while the show runs unwatched, keeps operating at 60 to 80% cognitive capacity without realizing there was another option. The attention deficit compounds quietly, not dramatically, just steadily, until the kind of work that actually requires sustained depth, creative thinking, real problem solving, genuine learning, starts to feel like it belongs to a different version of him. Not impossible, just somehow out of reach. The second future, intentional reduction. Daniel puts the phone in a different room for the first hour of the morning. He stops second screening. He starts noticing, when his hand moves toward the phone without him deciding to move it. Not dramatic intervention, just friction, deliberately inserted. Communities of people who've tried this report recovering the ability to read within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent practice. Not because the brain was fixed, because the attention muscle, like any muscle, responds when you actually use it. The third future, aggressive reset, 7 days, no short-form video, no reflexive checking, deliberate boredom, protected. The protocol that appears most consistently across both research and the people who've actually done this. 30 minutes where you can either read or do nothing, but you cannot use a device. Just those 2 options, read or sit. The boredom that comes in the first 10 minutes is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the reset button for the dopamine system activating. After 23 minutes of uninterrupted stillness, That's the measured recovery window. The brain begins to find its footing again. It remembers what depth feels like. Studies show that after 7 days of structured stimulus reduction, some people see a 42% improvement in sustained attention. 42%. In a week. That number sounds extraordinary until you realize it just means returning to what you already had. One person in the R-No-Surf community described finishing a book after years of digital distraction as feeling like a runner's high. Not an exaggeration, an actual neurochemical event. The kind of satisfaction that comes from sustained depth, the kind that used to be ordinary, had become so rare that completing it felt like a physical achievement. That's not because reading got harder, it's because the competition got engineered. Technology was supposed to be an exoskeleton, something that makes you stronger, extends your reach, amplifies your capability, a map that helps you navigate, a tool that serves the task. What the attention economy built instead works more like a parasite. It consumes your focus to feed its own growth. Every minute you spend on the platform is a minute it converts into advertising revenue. Your attention is the raw material. Your time is the product. And the system is most effective when you don't see it as a system. Remember the question from the beginning. How long can you focus before your mind starts to drift? You had a number. Something felt true when you heard it. Now you have a score, a level, a context, and 3 futures. Compare them. The number you gave yourself at the start against the audit result. For most people, they don't match. Most people believe they're in the first level. Most people are in the second. That gap between how you perceive your attention and how your attention actually functions is not a character flaw. It's a design feature you're not supposed to notice. The system works best when the cost is invisible. Daniel's going to figure this out. He'll put the phone down long enough to feel the discomfort of slowness. He'll sit with it until a book starts to feel possible again. He'll get the runner's high. He'll get there. He just hasn't run the full number yet.